The galaxy had rules. Everyone knew them. When the collective came to your world, you had two choices. You could surrender and let them take your planet, or you could fight and die. No species had ever chosen a third option. There was no third option. Until the humans. The ambassador from the collective stood before the Galactic Council. His body was made of living crystal, and light moved through him like blood. Behind him, a hologram showed a small blue planet spinning slowly in the dark. Earth, they called it. Home to a species that had just discovered how to travel between stars. We gave them the standard choice, the ambassador said. Surrender or extinction. They chose neither. The council chamber filled with laughter. The representative from the Stone Empire, a being of rock and fire twice the height of any human, shook with amusement. Neither? What does that mean? Every species picks one. That is how it works. They said they would fight, the ambassador replied. They said they would win. Then they ended the communication. More laughter. The humans were nothing. Their ships were slow and weak. Their weapons were primitive. Their planet was only being harvested because it sat in a convenient location for mining routes. They were not special. They were not important. They were simply in the way. The harvester fleet was sent within days. 3,000 warships. Enough power to crack a world in half. The fleet had destroyed more than 200 civilizations. It had never failed. It never would. When the fleet arrived at Earth, the humans were waiting. They had gathered everything they owned. Old satellites turned into weapon platforms. Mining ships filled with explosives. Passenger transports carrying volunteers who knew they would not come back. The human fleet was small and sad and brave. The battle lasted 6 hours. The harvesters destroyed every human ship. They burned the space stations. They silenced the weapon platforms one by one. They watched as the last human commander sent a final message to her people on the planet below. We did what we could. Now it is up to you. Then she flew her broken ship straight into the command vessel of the harvester. Fleet. The explosion was so bright the people on Earth could see it in the sky. The fleet. Commander was a general from the Stone Empire. He had killed millions in his long life. He looked down at the blue world and felt nothing at all. Begin. He ordered. The bombardment lasted 3 days. Cities turned to ash. Mountains were flattened. The oceans boiled in places. Billions of humans died. When it was over, the general looked at what remained. Smoke covered the continents. Fire burned everywhere. Nothing could live through that. Nothing ever had. Leave 50 ships to guard the planet, he commanded. Begin harvesting resources in 10 cycles. I will return to report our victory. The Galactic Council received the news without interest. Another primitive species destroyed. Another world ready for mining. It was noted in the records and forgotten. They did not send anyone to check on Earth for 50 years. Deep below the burned surface in bunkers built for older wars. In tunnels dug during the panic before the invasion, humanity survived. Not many, a few million out of billions. They huddled in the dark, breathing recycled air, drinking recycled water, eating food grown under artificial lights. In the 3rd year after the burning, a baby was born. The first child born since the world ended. Her parents named her Hope. She was small and weak and beautiful. She died within a month. A simple fever killed her. In the old world, medicine would have saved her in an hour. In the new world, there was no medicine left. Her parents did not survive the winter. Hope died. But humanity did not. In the dark, in the cold, in the ruins of everything they had ever known, the survivors made a choice. They would not give up. They would not accept death. They would rebuild. They would grow strong. And one day, They would make the collective pay for what it had done. They did not know how long it would take. They did not care. They had lost everything except their hatred and their will to live. And that, it turned out, was enough. The first 10 years were the hardest. Disease killed many. Despair killed more. The bunkers were not built to last forever. The air systems failed. The water filters clogged. Food ran short. The population dropped from millions to hundreds of thousands. But humans are strange creatures. They survive things that should destroy them. They find ways forward when there is no path. They keep going when all logic says they should stop. In the 10th year, an old woman gathered the leaders of the scattered bunkers together. Before the burning, she had been an engineer. She had built bridges and towers. Now she built hope out of nothing. "We are dying slowly," she told them. "If we do nothing, the last bunker will fall silent in 20 years. Maybe 30. But there is another way. What can we do?" One of the leaders asked. "The surface is poison. The aliens watch from above. We are trapped like rats." The engineer smiled. It was not a kind smile. "The aliens think we are dead. They have not looked at Earth closely in a decade. They believe there is nothing here but ash. That is our advantage." "Advantage? We have nothing." "We have two things," she said. "We have hatred, and we have time." The work began that day. Tunnels were dug to connect the bunkers. Factories were built in deep caverns far from alien sensors. Teams began making careful trips to the surface at night. When the alien ships were not watching, they brought back metal from ruined cities. They brought back electronics from military bases that had been buried under rubble. They brought back weapons that had somehow survived the fire. And they brought back alien technology. The ships guarding Earth had grown careless over the years. Their crews were bored. Their maintenance was poor. Sometimes ships crashed from simple failures. The humans found these wrecks and took them apart piece by piece. Every wire, every circuit, every power cell. 20 years after the burning, a young scientist figured out how the alien engines worked. 25 years after, they built their first plasma weapon. 30 years after, they tested their first small ship in a hidden underground hangar. The population was growing again. Children were born and survived. Schools were built in the tunnels. The lessons were different from the old world. Every child learned science and engineering. Every child learned combat and tactics. And every child learned what had been done to their home. They learned about the cities that had burned. They learned about the billions who had died. They learned about a baby named Hope, who had been the first child born after the fire and who had died because there was no medicine to save her. Every child swore the same oath: never again, never forget, never forgive. 40 years after the burning, a young soldier stood before the council that now led humanity. He was the commander of their first real military unit. Behind him stood 100 fighters, trained in weapons that mixed human engineering with stolen alien technology. "We are ready," he said. "The enemy has 43 ships in orbit. They have not been reinforced in decades. Their crews are small. Their weapons are not maintained. We can take them." The old engineer sat at the head of the council. Her hair was white now, her face lined with age and grief. But her eyes were sharp. "And after we take their ships?" she asked. The soldier's face was hard as stone. "Then we find out where they came from. Then we go there. Then we make them understand what they did to us." The engineer nodded slowly. "I have waited 40 years for this moment. I watched our world burn. I held children as they died from sickness we could have cured. I buried friends who gave up hope." She stood, and despite her age, her voice was strong. "Do it. Take back our sky. And then make them pay." The soldier saluted. "It will be done." That night, 100 small ships rose from hidden launch sites across the dead Earth. They were ugly things, built from salvage and stolen parts. But they flew, and they carried a species that refused to die. The attack came without warning. The alien ships had followed the same routine for 40 years. Their crews slept at the same hours. They ate at the same times. They had stopped watching for threats long ago. Why would they watch? The planet below was dead. Everyone knew that. Everyone was wrong. The commander of the alien fleet was asleep when the alarm started screaming. He ran to the bridge, confused and angry. The sensors showed impossible things. Dozens of contacts rising from the dead planet. Weapon signatures that matched their own technology. "This cannot be happening," he said. The primitives were destroyed. "I have seen the reports." "Commander," his officer said, voice shaking. "They are sending us a message." The screen flickered. A human face appeared. Young. Female. Her eyes held no mercy and no fear. "This is the Human Reclamation Fleet," she said. "We are not here to talk. We are not here to accept your surrender. You have 6 minutes to send us the location of your homeworld and the positions of your other fleets. After that, you will die. If you help us, we will kill you quickly. If you do not, we will not." The commander stared at the screen. "You are threatening us? Your ships are garbage. We have real warships." The woman smiled. It was the same smile the old engineer had worn decades ago. "Your ships have not fired their weapons in 40 years. You do not practice combat. Your ammunition is old and poorly stored. We have been watching you. We know everything about you." She leaned forward. 5 minutes and 30 seconds. The battle was short and brutal. The human ships were smaller and fewer, but they were crewed by soldiers who had trained their whole lives for this moment. Every pilot knew exactly where to aim. Every gunner had memorized the weak points in alien armor. Every commander understood that losing meant the end of their species. The aliens fought back, but they were slow and confused. Their weapons jammed. Their shields failed. Their crews panicked. In 2 hours, 30 of their ships were burning wreckage. The remaining 13 surrendered. The prisoners were questioned. Some cooperated. They were given quick, painless deaths. Some refused. They learned that humans had spent 50 years studying alien biology. They had learned which parts caused the most pain. They had learned how to keep a body alive through terrible things. The humans were not proud of what they did, but they were not ashamed either. They needed information, and they got it. Within a month, they knew everything. Star maps showing the locations of enemy worlds. Lists of fleet positions. Political structures and weaknesses. Everything they needed to plan a war. The old engineer died 3 months after the battle. She had lived just long enough to see the stars again. Her last words were simple. "Finish it." For all the children who died. For hope, finish it. The young commander who had led the attack was given control of the new human navy. The captured ships were repaired and studied. New ships were built. Factories that had worked in secret for decades now worked openly, filling the scarred sky with the smoke of industry. For 5 years, they prepared. They built ships. They trained soldiers. They planned their revenge with careful patience. When the fleet finally left Earth, it numbered 200 warships. They were not going to explore the galaxy. They were not going to make friends. They were going to war. The message they sent ahead was simple. We are coming. We remember everything. We will not stop until we are finished. The galaxy had forgotten about the humans. They were about to remember. The Galactic Council met in emergency for the first time in 300 years. The Great Hall was filled with representatives of 1,000 species. All of them were afraid. "This is impossible," the Stone Empire representative said. His voice was no longer confident. The Harvester homeworld has fallen. The Collective has lost 17 systems. The humans cannot be doing this. They were destroyed. Clearly, the Collective ambassador said, his light dim and weak. They were not. The reports were terrifying. Human fleets appeared without warning. Their ships were somehow invisible to normal sensors. They did not negotiate. They did not accept surrender. They attacked, destroyed all military targets, took what they needed, and vanished. But what truly frightened the Council was what the humans left behind. On every conquered world, they left a message. Sometimes it was carved into the ground, letters 100 kilometers long. Sometimes it was broadcast on every frequency. The message was always the same. We are the humans of Earth. You tried to kill us. You failed. Remember this when you see our ships in your sky. The Council tried to fight back. They gathered their fleets. They formed alliances between old enemies. They developed new weapons. Nothing worked. The humans fought like nothing the galaxy had ever seen. They took risks that no sane species would consider. They sacrificed ships to achieve their goals. They adapted to every new weapon within days. They learned from every battle and came back stronger. A general from the Stone Empire was captured after his fleet was destroyed. He was brought before a human officer for questioning. The officer was young, barely an adult. But her eyes were ancient. Why do you keep fighting? The general asked. You have taken our worlds. You have broken our fleets. What more do you want? The officer was quiet for a long moment. Do you know what hope is? She finally asked. It is a primitive emotion. The belief that things will get better without reason. We had a child named Hope once, the officer said. She was born after your kind burned our world. She was the first new life in our darkest hour. And she died because we had nothing to save her with. She leaned forward. Hope died, but we did not. We kept going. We rebuilt. We grew stronger. And now we are here. What do you want from us? I want you to understand something. Her voice was cold and steady. You thought you were hunters and we were prey. You thought you could burn our home and move on to the next world. You were wrong. We are not prey. We are not victims. We are the thing that crawls out of the ashes and comes for you in the night. We are the species that should have died but did not. We are humanity. And we never forget. The war lasted 20 years. When it ended, the harvester species was broken. The Stone Empire had surrendered. The Galactic Council had been dissolved and rebuilt with humanity as a founding member. On the anniversary of the burning. Now a day of remembrance across all human worlds. A ceremony was held on Earth. The planet was healing at last. Green had returned to some continents. The oceans were blue again. Life was coming back. The commander of the human navy, now an old woman with gray hair and tired eyes, stood before the memorial. The names of the billions who had died were carved into a wall that stretched for kilometers. We did not forgive, she said to the gathered crowd. We did not forget, but we did survive. The galaxy has learned something it should have known from the beginning. You cannot kill humanity. You can burn our cities. You can poison our air. You can murder our children. But we will endure. We will adapt. We will rebuild. And we will come for you. She looked up at the sky, where human warships hung in silent guard. A child named Hope died in the dark years after the burning. She was the first of our new generation, and she did not live to see her first birthday. We named her Hope because that is what she gave us. And though she died, what she represented never did. The old commander closed her eyes. Hope died, but we did not. We never will. The crowd stood in silence as her words echoed across the healing world. Above them, The stars shone bright. Once, those stars had seemed like a threat. Now they belonged to humanity. The galaxy had tried to destroy them. The galaxy had failed. And now the galaxy would have to live with the consequences. Humans are not the strongest species. They are not the smartest. They are not the most advanced. But they are the most stubborn. They are the most persistent. They are the ones who refuse to die when they should. And that, in the end, is what makes them dangerous.